Hello there, and welcome back to the Love Machine podcast. Now, today we're going to be diving deep into a subject that so many people quietly struggle with but rarely talk about openly: passion, confidence, and connection in relationships. Did you know that research shows nearly 70% of couples report a drop in intimacy and satisfaction within just the first few years of being together? It does not have to stay that way, I promise you. And my guest today is the fantastic Carla Crivaro, a brilliant sex, love, and relationship coach who helps leaders and founders reignite their sex lives, build deeper connections, and step into their full power both in and out of the bedroom. So if you've ever felt stuck in old patterns, disconnected from your desires, or worried that your relationship has lost its spark, this episode is going to show you how to unlock pleasure, confidence, and intimacy so you can feel truly alive and magnetic again. This is going to be uplifting, empowering, and deeply inspiring for you all. Carla, how are you doing?
Yeah, really well, thank you. And what an amazing introduction. Thanks so much for that, James. And I am really keen to dive in, if that's okay with you. So the statistic that you said was like 70% of relationships see a decline in the first couple of years. Mm-hmm. And I'm just checking that information that you've taken is referring to heterosexual relationships.
Yes, predominantly, yes, it is.
Yeah. And so I'm going to go in with the really, really uncomfortable truth, mm-hmm. So straight from the outset, which is that, because a lot of people, be sat listening and they'll be thinking to themselves that the path that it generally takes is a lot of people, they get together, there's a lot of chemistry, a lot of passion, sex is really good to start off with. And then women quite often tend to start losing interest in sex. And then, so people generally have this idea that like women aren't sexual and don't like sex and not really interested in sex. And so then what happens is, because the men continue to initiate, they're interested. And this is I'm just speaking generally here, because obviously, I do work with people and couples where it is the other way around, but this is general in relation to the statistics that you're naming here. Mm-hmm. And what happens is, the men continue to initiate, the women would prefer to have a cup of tea, or they've got a headache, or whatever it might be. And so this divide becomes greater and greater and greater, that it becomes, considerably more difficult to get back to. Mm-hmm. More often than not, the underlying cause of that is that the woman's not getting enough pleasure. So if we go to another statistic, which is, and this is why I said to you, I wanted to check that statistic is heterosexual, mm-hmm. because in heterosexual relationships, depending on the study that you look at, there is something called the orgasm gap. And what that is 30 to 60% of women have orgasms with a partner. And this is in heterosexual relationships. Whereas, mm-hmm. Depending on the statistics, around 90% of men will have an orgasm with their partner. So that's called the orgasm gap, because obviously there's quite a large disparity there between mm-hmm. men and women. And a lot of this comes from various different things. And I know a lot of people immediately want to jump into, oh, it's porn. But this sort of issue was there way before porn really, really became quite big on the internet. This sort of situation, this problem has been there for quite a while. And a lot of it comes from misunderstanding and misinformation around women's bodies and women's pleasure. Because when a woman has orgasms, she wants more of them. So what that means is the more orgasms and the more pleasure a woman is experiencing, the more then that she will ask for it and, feel like she wants to initiate it, because women want sex that is going to be good for them. And so if a woman at the beginning of a relationship was extremely sexual and then that declines, it's generally that something in the relationship's not happening. Maybe she's not asking for things to be done in a particular way. She's not giving direction. Maybe she feels like she can't give direction because she's worried how he might react. And there was a study done in Brazil actually around faking orgasms and why women do that. And a lot of it is to do with, not wanting to hurt the man's ego, worried that he might go and have an affair, worried, that he might get upset. And a lot of it was the woman managing the emotions and the potential outcome of what might happen if she spoke up for herself. And so that, like I said, I'm going to dive right into that and just lay that all out on the table for you, James. And, you're doing well not to be blushing right now. So.
Oh, I don't blush. I've been in this industry a long, long time. But so many thoughts came into my head when you were saying all that to me. And one of the things was, and luckily I know the answer to this question myself, but not every man does. Any men listening, I want to go straight into it. How does a man know if a woman's faking it or not?
So, well, the thing is, you don't always necessarily know. And it depends also as well where you are in your sexual life. Like, if you're listening, have you been with the same partner for 20, 30 years? Or, have you had a series of lots of different partners? Because I've worked with women, for example, that have been married in a relationship for like 15 years. They have faked the whole time and they've never had an orgasm with their partner. Like, that's not unusual and uncommon. For those women, the situation has been that they, generally speaking, not just sexually, but generally can't bring something to their partner that's upsetting. They can't ask for something. And, this isn't just sexually, but it's related to maybe, what they want in the relationship, how they want to be treated, bringing a concern. So not having that capacity to be able to have a safe conversation around elements of the relationship anyway, that's certainly not going to do that in a sexual and, quite vulnerable situation. And so how can men know? I suppose the thing, to bear in mind is, and to be aware of, it's like when a man really, really slows down, because the way that a lot of men tend to approach sex is quite like hot and fiery. So if you imagine like yin and yang, like men are like ready to go, quite easily get an erection. For a woman to experience the same state of arousal, it does require a lot more time. It requires a lot more, a lot more foreplay, a lot more interaction. And it's also not just the sex in the moment, but everything surrounding that as well. And what I mean is like, has she done everything in the house? Everything's like sorted. Is she able to drop into sex, or is she thinking about all of the 100 things that still need doing in the house? So, there's all of those, so many different layers. But coming back to your question, how does he know or not? When a man is able to really, really slow down and be extremely present with his partner and notice her breathing, notice her body movements, notice like how she maybe moves her pelvis forward towards things. Also seeing like the actual woman's vulva, like, is it actually swelling? Because when you look at pictures of like a penis and a clitoris, the clitoris is actually the penis, in the sense of when at the time of conception, that I think is it like 12 weeks or something or 7 weeks or something like that we actually become, male or female, with male or female genitalia.
7 or 8 weeks, isn't it?
Yeah, something along those lines. And it's at that time that, the penis becomes, the size that it is, but then the clitoris, forms and the vulva forms as well. And so the tip of the clitoris, if you imagine that, is the same as the glands of the penis. And by glands, what I mean is like the tip of the penis. And so when a woman is aroused, like a man, her genitals will actually swell as well. So it's like, is she swelling? Is she engorged? Some women lubricate really well, some not as much. And it's like noticing all of those signs and those signals and really being aware and mindful of her body to understand if she is having an orgasm or not. And then also, if you're in a situation where you're going from one relationship to the next, maybe things tend to be a little bit more casual. How do you know that? If a woman is really confident in giving you direction, because every woman's body is different. So what's going to work for one woman isn't going to work necessarily for another. And vulvas are very differently shaped. And some, women have extremely sensitive clitorises, some don't. Really, really varied. So if a woman is confident in being able to give direction, a little bit more to the left, less pressure, more pressure, whatever it might be, it's more likely that woman's going to have an orgasm. And the thing that I hear very often from women in those situations are, you know, when they approach a man and they say, hey, can you do it a bit more like this or a bit more like that? And then the man turns around and go, well, it's worked for every other partner. There becomes like a big question mark there, whether it actually did. Yeah, go Joe.
Do men really say that? I could not imagine in that situation someone would be that defensive. Really?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And it happens a lot more. And so that's when, like, you know, women shut down because they think there's something wrong with their body. And, you know, now, like with, you know, modern day, especially for younger people in particular that have a lot of misinformation from porn, a lot of women, if they're not having an orgasm from penetration, think that there's something wrong with them. And like only 20% of women can orgasm from penetration alone. No, most women need clitoral stimulation. And so if a woman is not experiencing clitoral stimulation, and she can be doing that for herself while being penetrated, or he can do that for her, if she's not experiencing that, then she's likely not to orgasm. But then when you're watching porn and women are having orgasms and no one's playing with their clitoris, and, you know, men and women are watching that, then it's very easy that a woman can feel broken, you know, like there's something wrong.
Yeah. Well, thank you for explaining that. I'm glad that I'm right and I knew the signals and the signs to look out for. If I didn't know, I'm in the wrong job. But it's always good to know. Some women are better at faking it than others, shall we say. But there are certain indications and indicators that you can go and you can, the more experience you have, the more you can recognize them, I would say. I think I'll leave it at that in terms of my personal experience, but it's important. And you talk about porn, though, as well. And this is an interesting topic as well, because some people think it's absolutely awful. You should get rid of it completely. Some say, do you know what? It's good. It benefits my relationship. It keeps me imaginative and teaches me different things. I think it has its place, but for many people, it's used very badly. And there's some terrible videos out there that teach young people in particular all sorts of things that just aren't true. Do you think that porn has a place to some degree, or should it just be banned completely?
It's, you know, not all porn is the same. So
It's
you know,
true.
when people use the word porn, it's like, you know, what are you referring to? Because you do have like ethical porn, you know, where porn, you know, the actors and the actresses are really, really well paid, you know, and they have a lot more freedom and choice in how they want to, you know, for a scene to look. You know, ethical porn tends to focus a lot more than like things like Pornhub and stuff. It tends to focus more on things like women's pleasure, so that tends to be a little bit more of a focus. And with anything, you know, it's how these things are used. If they're being used for educational purposes, like education in the sense of this is how a woman's body works or a man's body works, you know, that's not what porn is for. It's entertainment. And like, can you get inspiration and new things to try? Yeah, you can do. Can it give you opportunity to see what fantasies are, you know, a potential and out there for you to maybe bring into your own sex life? Absolutely. The thing is, you know, a lot of people, men particularly more so, although there are a lot more women, you know, that are becoming more reliant on it as well to be able to get aroused and to have orgasms. But, you know, a lot of men use it at the end of the day just to release a lot of stress. And the problem is, you know, when you have that relationship with your body and you're releasing stress like through ejaculating to porn, you know, what you tend to be doing there, it's like how you're masturbating, you're doing it really, really quickly, quite vigorously. You need to like quickly get it out. And what that can do, that can potentially cause problems further down the line, you know, with a partner, because your body learns a particular way of doing things. And so if your body learns that when it ejaculates, it needs to do it this way, when you're then in partnered sex, which is going to take longer, you know, another problem is with screens is, you know, men's grip tends to be a bit tighter when they sell pleasure to porn. And so when you're then with a woman, you know, whose vagina isn't going to be that tight, it's going to feel very, very different. And the chances then of being able to ejaculate or even maintain an erection can be a lot more difficult. So there's so many different points to take into consideration. It's like, what are you watching? How are you watching it? How frequently are you watching it? Like, what's your intention for it? I mean, gosh, that could be an episode in itself, just talking about that. So, but yeah, I suppose the thing that I would say to people is, just being mindful of what am I teaching my body and how do I want to show up in when I have partnered sex, and just being mindful of that.
Great answer. I completely agree with you. I think there's a lot of problems that can come with it, but I still think it's a useful tool occasionally, and it can stimulate stimulate quite a lot, really, let's be honest, but it can stimulate different thoughts and ideas as you go forwards to do that. But I think many people, particularly my male clients, overuse it. And like you said, they become reliant on it. And when they go and they end up having sex with a real person, it doesn't feel the same, and they can't complete, and it's a lot more difficult. So it can cause problems. But so I think go out there and find yourself a real partner. It's a better solution overall, and that's what I'm here for. That's what I teach people. But you were saying earlier, and I think we're on agreement, there's a lot of confusion going on between people now, and people don't feel aligned with their partners, and they don't feel that they've got the same chemistry they had right at the start of a relationship, because other things have come into this. How do you reignite this? How do you get the passion back if it's gone or it's not what it once was?
So it really depends on, like, certain things, like having children around can have like quite a big impact.
Yes. Yep.
So it's like, so do they have children or not? So if they don't have children, it's like being more intentional with things like date nights. Well, even having children, it is more intentional with date nights. But, without children, it's being more intentional, and it's building also that opportunity to flirt with each other, and also doing things like, it's also been shown that when we see our partner in a new and interesting way, seeing things that we haven't seen them do before, that can ignite something in us that's like, oh, we find something interesting about them, and then we go and look, and we go to find a way to get to know them in a very different way, and that can stimulate the juices. And then when it comes to things like children, what can happen is, and people talk about it very, very often with regards to like the mental and physical load on women. And, yes, there is this need for men to be able to step up and, do more around the house so that the load isn't on the women. But also, quite often it's like how women are actually speaking to and engaging men in that. A lot of women tend to make passive aggressive comments around, oh, you've not taken the bins out, oh, shall I do it then, and these sorts of comments that don't actually address the problem, because the majority of men, if you approach them and say, I'm feeling really overwhelmed, I can't take all 3 kids to their clubs on a Saturday, I can't do it all, it's too much, if you bring that problem to your partner, he will help you find a solution. However, if you go to him and say, you're selfish because you go and play golf on a Saturday, he's just going to like feel that his golf is being attacked. And so it's like having those conversations that's engaging them back into it. For a lot of women, once that stress, has gone, once women are back into their cup being full, once they are supported in the home and they have that support with the children as well, it's a lot easier for them then to tap into that sort of like playful, flirtatious, sexual energy. And so it's like, how can you as a couple support each other in being able to have that energy to be able to bring it into your relationship?
The only issue with that, I would say, when it comes to children is that, well, my wife and I, we try and make sure we have regular days rather than nights. We have nights away. We do what we can. It's limited because of babysitters and children. But at home, kids are flipping stressful. And particularly at the moment, when we're currently recording, it's the school holidays. One of my sons woke up 7 times last night. And we saw a bit of a scary film yesterday, which is probably inappropriate. That's probably why, but 7 times. But that's not uncommon for them to wake up or not go to sleep for a long period of time. How do you handle that? If you can never have a moment, during the day you're working, you're too busy, in the evenings you're trying to relax and you can't relax because the kids are waking up and calling you, how do you have time to get intimate and to reconnect?
So I think also it comes back down to like changing your idea and perception of like what sex needs to look like, because full penetration like might not be the thing that you can necessarily aim for. So it's like the words that you said, how can you reconnect? And so that just might be like turning the TV off, putting your phones away, because those things in themselves kill connection. You know, how can you take that time, maybe just doing a foot rub and having a conversation, you know, taking it in turns to offer each other like a massage. And also, you know, once you do that and you remove the pressure of it having to go somewhere in particular, you know, there are more chances then, because you relax, that it might do that. But it's a lot of it is removing that. And, you know, when you've like had a night and you neither of you slept because a child's woken, you know, 7 times, then obviously tonight's not going to be the night, is it? That you get intimate, you know.
It wasn't. It wasn't.
So, you know, it might be a few days that you need to wait before you can like reconnect in that way.
Yeah, I think eventually you do, and you find a way. And it is the small things, like you said. It could be just holding hands, saying nice things to each other, going for a walk, making someone a cup of coffee. Even little small gestures always count and they add up. But I absolutely agree that making time for a partner, even just going somewhere for lunch or going for a walk, is so important every week that you just take that time to go and do it. Because if you're challenging each other in the way that you are never making time and you're prioritizing other things and other people, you're never going to reconnect. So I think it's so important, and conversation and communication are absolutely key to this, and to make sure that you are with the right person in the first place as well. That's an important thing. And I'm saying that purely to tie into a question I've got for you. That I was reading your website, of course, in advance to this conversation, and you talk a lot on your website about how to create a magnetic connection with somebody. And I'm very curious to know what your thoughts are on that, and how you know when you've got that and how to go about doing it.
So the thing is, with magnetic connection, it's like, how can you as a human being feel magnetic inside yourself? Because quite often, you know, what we're doing is we are outsourcing how other people should make us feel. So I want to feel desirable. I want to feel, you know, that they desire me, that they want this, you know, all of these different things. I want them to make me feel sexy. And actually, a lot of that work comes back down to you creating it for yourself first. So when you are able to feel in yourself magnetic, sexy, desirable, whatever it might be, automatically you showing up from that place is going to inspire the other person to show up in the way that continues to help you feel like that reinforces that feeling. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And there are different ways of doing that, which we'll come on to in a second. But one of the ways I wanted to mention is exercise can definitely help, and living a good life. Because how can you feel sexy or attractive or magnetic if you're just eating junk food, never working out, and sitting on the sofa all day, playing on your phone, like you said? So for me, exercise is really important. Not necessarily overdoing it. I never overdo it, but going for a walk, going for a run, going to the gym, doing Pilates, they really help me to do that, and just to feel more confident in myself. Because if we get the body moving, it definitely helps. That's just one thing that I would suggest, purely to just chip in and give you an idea for myself, what I think is important. I teach my clients, but I'd like to hear your ways of doing this.
Yeah, and so, you know, you talked there already about exercise, food as well, like how you nourish yourself. I know that you're going to ask me at the end about routines, having really good routines, making sure that you're sleeping the way that you set yourself up for the day. You know, one of the things I, you know, really like to encourage, particularly women, to do is like dance and movement, because when we have that, when we connect to our like bodies in that slow, sensual way, that can really help us feel magnetic. And there are 3 like archetypes that I like to play around with women. One of them is the queen. And so the queen archetype is that person inside of ourselves that's there, that knows what she wants, knows how to ask for it. And then this is the thing that a lot of women then struggle with, is actually receiving it, like giving themselves permission to receive it. Then the second archetype is the mother archetype. And that's like what I was saying before, like how much are you nurturing yourself and looking after yourself, filling your cup up so that you have the energy, you know, that you are able then to walk through the world feeling good, you know, feeling confident.
Yeah.
The third one is the temptress. And the temptress is the one that's like about sensuality, and sensuality is like how well you're able to connect to and listen to your own body. The temptress is playful, you know, she's the one who is flirty, and it's like, how much are you bringing fun into your life? Like, what are you doing in your life that makes you laugh, that makes you feel good about yourself? Like, what hobbies, the people that you spend time with, you know. And going back to the mother archetype, like your boundaries, where can you say no to things to protect your own energy and to help you, you know, feel good, so that you're not being drained, you're not self-sacrificing and being the martyr.
I'm curious to know, what are the male versions of that? Would it be the king and the father and the player, or what would it be? What would the third one be?
So, well, I don't work too much with archetypes with men, because I've got male colleagues that do that. But I do know that there are like the king, which is quite similar in like vision. You know, the way that they lead their kingdom, which can be either their business or their family. The warrior is quite a popular one as well for men. So men that are standing up for themselves, for their boundaries, you know, that are the protector. And this doesn't mean that they're necessarily going out and, you know, physically protecting their partner, but it's more of a case of also, you know, protecting themselves and their own boundaries. You know, a lot of men have this idea that happy wife, happy life. And it's like, women, you know, men do want to make their women happy, which is great. But at the same time, if you self-abandon as a man and you completely people please, it just builds resentment. And women don't really want Mr. Nice Guy. Like, they want a guy who can listen and hold space, but they also want a man that's got the balls to say, like, no, I'm not doing that, you know, or no, this isn't appropriate, or no, we're not going to spend £5,000 on that, you know, like that will stand up for himself. So I'd probably say that would be, you know, the energy that a lot of women want, you know, that type of warrior. And then the third one, with regards to like the temptress, I would imagine would be like the lover, you know, so the man that's like connected to that sexual place within inside himself, but from a place that feels like really, really grounded and fully present, rather than allowing like their own eros and eroticism to like run away and like take over their body. It's like, how can they slow down and come back to present? So I would probably, from the male archetypes that I know, I would probably put those connected to the female ones.
Excellent. I have to ask the questions, whoever comes into my mind. I'm just generally curious about things. So thank you for answering that. I put you on the spot there and I appreciate it. And you answered that really well. The reason I asked you is I've got a client who's been asking me a lot about archetypes. He's a joker archetype, he says. So he's very much playful, jokes around, doesn't take life too seriously. And he wanted to know, he's a gay client, he wants to know which sort of man he should be going for. Should it be a leader? Should it be a warrior? And we worked out maybe someone that's a warrior or too much of a leader isn't going to tolerate his behavior, or they're going to get bored with it. So we're working out the balance there. It's always interesting to explore these things. They are just ideas and they lead to more conversations, don't they? Yeah. But I'm not going to forget what you said, because you said about that, the queen, how the queen doesn't know how to call it in, how to call in this treatment. How does anyone listening now call in that behavior from men to treat them like a queen? Because a lot of men rebel against this, because there's the whole princess treatment thing that's going on now, and they've got clients in Dubai. So yeah, I'd like to know your thoughts.
The princess is different to queen, so you know. Okay. So yeah, because obviously she's like the part that's not fully formed within herself yet to be queen. So I think when people, a lot of people, when they're thinking queen, are thinking like arrogant, but you know, a queen, when it comes to archetype, is more like a woman who, she knows what her standards and her values are. Like, she's sure of that. One of the mistakes that a lot of women make is they know what they want, especially in a relationship. Like, I want to get married and I want to have children, but they end up falling in a relationship with a man who says, I don't want to have children and I don't want to get married. The man wants a relationship, but he just doesn't want those things. And the problem is, what women do is they then go, okay, well, maybe if he falls in love with me enough, he might change his mind. And like, a queen knows that these are the things that are important to her. If a man says that he doesn't want that, then she knows her own worth enough to be able to go, okay, this is my vision, this is what I want. This person isn't going to provide what I want for myself. So it's having that worth of being able to say no and then move on.
I completely agree. I talked about the princess treatment thing in Dubai. My Dubai clients have got one of them. Women always want to try and change his mind, and he's the one that's going to settle down with them. They're going to make him want to have children and the rest of it. He doesn't, but they always stay with him, trying. And it's more of a challenge. It goes on and on and on. In the end, it never works out. He does want to have children, does want to meet someone, but not just yet. Which is great. Everyone's entitled to do what they want to do, but I think honesty is an important part of that. So someone else that wants to be treated like a queen, if someone's not doing that, or someone's not treating you in the way that you want to be treated, then don't expect them to change. Go and find someone that will. Know your worth, like you just said, and that's absolutely vital to finding happiness and reconnecting with yourself and with your perfect partner. So we're coming towards the end of the podcast already, which is amazing. I thought we just got started, really. But so I want to ask you the question now that I do ask everybody. And you know what the question is. You've referred to it already. Do you have any daily habits or routines, Carla?
Yes. So every morning when I wake up before picking up my phone, I have my little altar. I light a candle.
Hang on 1 second. You got an altar. What's on your altar exactly? Is it a mirror? What is it?
So I have got a candle. I've got some crystals. I've got things to represent the different elements of earth, fire, water. I have oh my god, what do you call it? A cast of a vulva that I bought from a gallery. So that's
always useful. Yeah. Okay. Is that an ashtray? Sorry. Go on.
And then I have some oracle cards as well. So because what I do every morning is I have a little book with the intentions for the day. So I take a look at my diary and what I'm going to be doing that day and write down my intentions. Then I write down 3 things that I am grateful for that happened yesterday. So just taking a moment to pause and think about that. Then I meditate for 20 minutes. Then I sit and do some journaling, just like connecting to that part of me that's like open to what's going to come up, any ideas that I might have related to my business. So I have time to journal around that. And then I pull an oracle card. So that's like my morning routine. And I find like having something slow really helps support my nervous system to start the day in a really calm and grounded way, focus about, the direction that I want to take the day in. And then to close the day, I do journaling. If I've got loads of stuff going on in my head and I'm going to struggle to sleep, like I journal that. And then also at the moment I'm listening to a hypnosis imprint because I'm doing training, not training, sorry, and doing a woman's like up level academy around business. So I'm getting support around my business. So I'm listening to that. When I'm not doing that, I will do a meditation and then I go to sleep. So I have container to open and close my day.
That's wonderful. And you've got kids as well. How do you have time for all that?
So I just get up a bit earlier, and my eldest, he has learned the same meditation as me. So we do that together in the morning. And then when he gets home from school in the afternoon, we do it together as well.
Amazing. I always talk about synchronicities in life. And I was saying yesterday to my wife that it'd be really useful for me to teach my eldest, my 11-year-old, about doing some sort of mindfulness meditation as well. So he can calm his mind and then wake up 7 times in the night. So great, that's how it works. And that sort of reinforced that belief to me. I have to get that going. I do play subliminal messages to them on my phone that I've recorded to my kids, actually, which relaxes them, me telling them to calm down and do a meditation. And then it goes into some sort of sound waves and then bubbles or forest noises, which really helps. So it's good as adults to do that too. So it's a great routine there, Carla. Thank you very much for sharing it. It's amazing that after sort of 280 odd episodes that things like journaling and meditation still come up all the time. They haven't lost any traction in the universe. Everyone's still doing them more and more. So that's amazing. And as are you, of course. You're absolutely amazing. So I want to ask you, if someone wants to find out more about you, how do they do that?
So, well, the most interesting information is on my website, which is carlacrivaro.com, just because, LinkedIn keeps removing some of my posts. Because they... some of them have been put back on, but yeah, I'm on LinkedIn as well. So Carla Crivaro, Instagram, the.sexuality.sanctuary, and then on Facebook as well with my name, Carla Crivaro.
Amazing. And they will, of course, be in the notes. If anyone's clicking on them, they can come straight through to your various links and sites. Thank you so much, Carla. We talked about a lot there, and there's so much more we could talk about again. So hopefully at some point soon, we'll talk again, and we can talk about things in more detail or different directions. But wonderful conversation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, James. It's been loads of fun.
Bye for now. Thank you so much for listening. I'd love to give you a free copy of my latest book, which you can download right now from my website, jamespreece.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, I'd really appreciate it if you could share the love by taking a few seconds to write a positive review on the iTunes store right now. See you next time.